Oh, I saw that, look, Becca. Get out. You sound like a Kaiserreich Weekly player. They also tend to ignore navies. Anyway, we have got Mexico picking on the Central American Republic. Mexico, which is Socialist Central American Republic, being Auth Dem, so probably Reichspakt leaning. So I'd kind of expect Third International to send volunteers to Mexico. Third International wants a strong Mexico, because they can be a pain to the USA. So I think it is in their favour to be sending volunteers, although they seem to have really pulled back from the volunteer sending in a really, really big way, and I think that's a terrible, terrible decision. I don't know why they've done that. Meanwhile, Chile and Patagonia coming back against Argentina. This is a really back and forth war. Right, let's go and have a look at this, because we haven't done so yet. Argentina's got far too many troops here in the north, and basically none anywhere else. Well, there you go, there's the problem. AI is being the AI, where they've got their entire army in these two provinces, because clearly that's the most important. You know, the bit that's not actually part of Argentina. Whereas the volunteers are all down here trying desperately to hold back the resurgence. Why is the Kaiserreich AI so bad? I'm not going to say it doesn't happen in vanilla, but I don't remember it being this terrible in vanilla. Nobody's playing as the Netherlands. They're not allowed to. The factions are preset, and the Netherlands is not one of the options. So, because it's been quite a long time since I've done the introductions last, I think it is probably high time that we introduce the players again. So, in the Co-Prosperity Sphere, which is Team Dudes and Canoes, we have got Y-Man in Japan. We have got French Baguette up in Russia. We've got the Empress of France in Fentiang. We have got Mazdo down in Siam. And then Gato in the Philippines. Oh, here we go. Wait, that... both? They're not in a faction. How did that work? Or did they form a faction? How did they capitulate both of them? Huzzah! Because I don't think Fan Tieng did enough damage to League of Eight Provinces. How the hell did that work? League of Six Provinces joined the Jili Clique faction eventually. Oh. So I guess that Qing was the only major. So then when Qing fell, it took League of Eight Provinces with them? That's silly. They both should be majors in that. At least until Qing annexes League. And even then I don't think they can do that. Why would someone want to play in the Philippines? It's either Philippines or Indochina. And Indochina, War of Independence never triggered because the player was late. Germany kept hold of Germany Asia in its entirety. Yeah, I don't think League of Eight Provinces was close to end. They weren't. That's why I'm so surprised. Well, that kind of sucks. Fentiang got that easily. Boo. We wanted more blood. Blood for the blood god. And yeah, this war in Argentina is Argentina's to lose, and they are going to. They have all 14 divisions here. Every single man, woman and child that is in the Argentinian army. This is entirely Reichspakt volunteers trying to keep them alive. That's a real shame as well. Ukraine, Bulgaria, Sweden, Germany and Austria are all here, desperately trying to keep this alive. AI is awful when it comes to impassable terrain. I mean, part of the reason they added so much impassable terrain is because the AI actually proved that they were relatively decent at dealing with it. So there must be something in a recent update that's completely balked that. I don't remember the AI being this terrible with impassable terrain. I mean, they were never good. I remember far too well how bad German East Asia... I guess maybe that was because of impassable. Maybe it was. Okay, I'm going to stop babbling about the AI, because I'm probably wrong on that. Meanwhile, Russia is currently fighting the Islamic Federation of Turkestan. Is anybody going to try and save Turkestan? I mean, it's a tall order. Although they do have a fair number of troops, but then Russia does have more. And 10 times the industry. Is it just me, or does TI feel like it's in a really weak position out of Western Europe? Oh, they are. But Third International has lots of focuses that... Oh, not focuses. Victory points that they can take in Germany, Vienna, and the Baltics. Balkans. Yeah, that's Balkan. That's not a mistake I normally make. Which we saw last time in the Game 4. They basically held on to Vienna and Berlin, denying those from the co-prosperity sphere, which allowed Third International to win. So yes, globally they're in a weak position, but they have lots of victory points which are relatively close to them. And they're also very concentrated, which means it's actually remarkably difficult to kill them, because all 5 of their nations can support each other mutually. Same to a slight extent for the Reichspakt. Like, both of these factions are really, really close together. Then the Entente is super spread out, which actually works in the Entente's favour, because they can do very good force projection if they have a handle on their navy. And then Co-Pro takes the longest to get going, but they're a very definite late game snowballer. And it looks like Fentieng right now is getting ready to go after the Republic of China, and I can't see the Republic of China holding against this massive front line for very long. So we're going to see a unified China at this point. That's inevitable. Will Middle Africa fall apart? No. That's a game rule which is set to off. Anyway, South African Revolt have got volunteers from India, USA and France, whereas the Union of South Africa has volunteers from Germany and Middle Africa. So Germany is doing a good job. So this is the opposite to Germany in the game last week, where actually sending quite a few volunteers, doing a lot more force projection around the world, trying to align things their way. They got really unlucky with the Fentien situation, though. I feel kind of bad for them for that. I feel like they could have kept the League of Eight Provinces alive for probably another year. I don't think there are any requirements for Fentieng. Except for the fact that they have to support Japan, yeah. Meanwhile, Jabal Shammar going ham against Persia. Persia at war with Somalia, Jabal Shammar and Egypt. So it's the Cairo Pact basically backstabbing their former ally. It's not very nice of them. Oh, 2 Sicilies are currently fighting against Socialist Republic of Italy. Are they being supported by any of their allies? No, this is the Unification War. This is the Risorgimento. So we have got the SRI currently fighting against 2 Sicilies. 2 Sicilies, of course, usually putting up a pretty staunch defence of the thin part of the boot. They have already lost part of their front line up here, which is not good for them. And this is giving the SRI more provinces from which to conduct multiple assaults. I would also expect to see the SRI Navy out. SRI have done a naval invasion, which has just been annihilated in Palermo. I think they were torn apart at sea. Yep, they were. 2 Sicilies and Papal State navies annihilated them. Because when we saw those Marines in Palermo, they were on basically no strength, and that's because they lost their transports. Navies! Why does everyone ignore it? Because we just saw the power of navies. Arrgh! And that's going to be a huge problem because they did just lose a whole bunch of Marines here. And the SRI industry is not the strongest early on. That's going to be incredibly expensive for them to replace. Yeah, no, I'm not going to check. But I really should check. We're checking. Screw it. Nope. No escort. No escort mission given. Might have been on amphibious assist, in which case they should have been escorting automatically. Papal submarines winning again. Yeah, don't screw with the two Sicilies at sea. The two Sicilies have an incredibly strong navy. It's one of the main reasons that two Sicilies are probably in my top 5 nations in Kaiserreich. I really like two Sicilies. But it looks like the SRI are doing enough of a job punching through. Also, they are getting support from CNTFAI, France and Ireland, all coming to their assistance, providing the extra firepower that they need. And they are attacking Naples right now. I'm a little bit surprised they were able to punch through as well as they have. I mean, obviously they're going for a fairly heavy artillery template because we can see the guns on the field. Not looking at templates again, but anyone can see that. And they are trying to attack into Naples right now, but they are being resisted. Or is that just north of Naples? That's just north of. And counterattacked down here. They could be cut off. If that Dominion of Canada unit woke up, they would cut off all of this, which includes the French volunteer units. Canada! Oh, we paused. Why we paused? Oh, they might not be able to... They not be... Are they allowed to send volunteers to Two Sicilies? That is a good question. Because they are. Entente and Two Sicilies can join the Entente. And Social Liberal, it looks like they're aligned towards the Entente. Ooh, that would be one hell of a gain. Yeah, I think so. Here's the thing. I think in regular Kaiserreich Weekly matches, they are not allowed to send volunteers. However, for this tournament, they are. And I'd quite like... So, one of the options that the Entente has is they can either put a player in Sardinia or in Australasia. And that seems like a really obvious choice. Sardinia just isn't big enough, particularly compared to Australasia, to make any difference. I think that's a moot choice. That's not a choice. However, putting a player in Two Sicilies or Australasia, that's a choice, and I think that would be an even one. And I'd kind of like to see the Entente being allowed to put a player in Two Sicilies. Although that would also curtail the strength of SRI and their ability to expand out. But if you're already allowed to send volunteers, maybe that should be allowed. Could also start the war earlier, but that's a war between the Entente and Third Internationale, not between the Reichspakt. It's not the Second World War. Two Sicilies would be a much better choice. Yeah, I agree. And it would give you a real power in the Mediterranean, which, if they're trying to give them Sardinia anyway... Like, don't get me wrong, Sardinia is decent because they start with a surprisingly strong navy, but their problem is manpower. Like, even if they are the naval controller, they're going to be limited in how many ships they can actually build. Entente won in South Africa? Okay. So, Islamic Federation of Turkestan has just been defeated by the Russians. And unfortunately the Entente were caught snoozing and were unable to get this cut off, which could have bought them so much time. And instead it's the Two Sicilies which are cut off, though they still have Rome, so they can still move ships in and out. And troops in and out. And look at this! AI! Convoy escorts! Amazing! Yes, better Sicily would be fair given that Spain is red. True. Is Spain required to have a civil war? No, Spain is required to ignore the civil war, to avoid it. That one I get. Like, avoiding the Spanish Civil War, yeah, I get it. I don't necessarily like it. I'm always in the camp where more civil wars is a good thing. But for that one, I get it. Although that is one of the places where the Third Internationale could really have a big impact in the Civil War. And CNTFAI is generally in a pretty strong position, same as the CSA. I always forget just how many divisions the Papal States is able to pump out. They just have so many of them. Which Pope did they go for? Stephen. Stephen's not the combat one though. Stephen's the helpful one. Pius is the combat one. Or Julius. Either of those. Is Stephen the one that can go secular? I think he is. Yeah, relinquish temporal power. He is. So you can actually... is that SPQR? I don't remember. I bet the eventual Spain rework forces a civil war. Hopefully. More civil wars is a good thing, Mordred 2020. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I understand why they don't do it here. But also I think it would be a good thing if there was a civil war there. I mean, you basically have the Italian Civil War, the Spanish Civil War, the American Civil War. There should be a Russian Civil War, and then the Chinese Civil War. And the Argentinian Civil War. What other civil wars are there? South African, Indian. Naples has been surrounded. So the SRI is doing a pretty good job of surrounding everything. Chongqing's just been taken out by the Republic of China. So this is Republic of China that's starting to stabilize and contain its borders. The question is whether they're going to be in a position to fortify their borders against Fentiang when Fentiang ultimately goes after them. But this could be a relatively strong Republic of China. And in a really, really horrible area to attack. Plus they have Guangxi with all the industry down here. And more importantly, all of the resources down here. Like Fentiang, obviously getting ready for a fight. But they may have been caught snoozing there by not pursuing a war more quickly. And also not protecting everything. Ah yes, and you did say the Union of South Africa won the civil war down here, so these are going to be pro-Entente, rejoining the Entente. They're doing it right now. So the Entente has their source of chromium secured. They also have their landing ground against a potential conflict against Middle Africa secured, if the Entente decides to go after the Reichspakt. Meanwhile, here in Two Sicilies, things aren't looking too hot. Two Sicilies are most of the way to capitulation. They're not in the same faction. Right, they guarantee each other, but they're not in a faction. Sorry, hair's going in my eyes. Get out! Two Sicilies have lost 100,000. SRI have lost 100,000. But SRI have significantly more industry at this point, because the Two Sicilies will have lost most of their starting industry. Don't forget Sweden's at war with the Finns. No they're not. Oh, yes they are. Okay, that I'd missed. When did that start? Sweden have 6 divisions. Finland has more than 6. However, there is an Austrian naval invasion going on in the south, but the Finns look like they might have it contained. Although Helsinki has fallen to a Ukrainian who is holding on to it. I think they were probably hoping to just blitz Finland down, but I'm not sure that's going to happen quite as they were hoping. Has Sweden lost troops here? No, just 3,000. I wondered if there was a failed invasion or something, like the SRI's failed invasion of Two Sicilies. And that's definitely going to put a dampener on their day. However, Two Sicilies are digging in and fortifying a bit. I'm surprised how much stronger the SRI's units are. I would love to see what those units are comprising, because Two Sicilies have a lot of industry. Their units are going to be well equipped. But SRI is just grinding through them like butter. This really does seem to be awfully one-sided. Stephen's the cool pope, John's the Cindy pope, Julius is the fascist pope, and Pius is the boring pope. So boring he doesn't even get a trademark. Oh yeah, I'm sure I know what's in some of the SRI units. I mean, it's not these, that's the thing. These are infantry. That's obviously artillery. But these are just infantry. Helps the two Sicilies are coloured like butter. To better help the SRI cut through them! Yes. Helsinki has been retaken. Union has rejoined. Ireland has joined the Third International. And we are marching on into March 39. It is still only 8:45 BST. We've got another, what, 4 hours today? We're definitely seeing the start of the Second World War. This is going to be interesting. I mean, we're basically 2 hours ahead of last week. So, last week we had the preliminaries. There were basically 4 games running concurrently. Game 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of those with 4 factions, just like we have here. Each of those factions with 5 players. 20 players per game. And our game, Game 4, had 2 hours of technical issues. I know, because I had to cut out those 2 hours of technical issues for the YouTube videos. So if you were one of the people who was very interested in Kaiserreich, or if you're joining us for the first time and you want to see the preliminary qualifier for this game, head on over to my YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/Mordred Viking. And currently being uploaded there is the preliminary game for Game 4, which is the one that I was commentating on, minus the tech issues. I cut them out. I found all of the ones that I could find and I cut them out. It took me a while. So I do encourage you to go and check it out. There's a reason I don't tend to edit, because there's been no noticeable difference in number of views versus normal stream archives. But still, for that type of thing where there is literally 2 hours of technical issues, yeah, I'm going to do some quality assurance. Oh, Fentiang declared. Yeah, Yunnan, or Hunan, was in the Republic of China's alliance. So that war is going on. And we'll switch over to Fentiang right now so we can take a look. We are paused again. But this is going to be Fentiang just chopping up the Republic. The Republic did have time to get troops into positions, but Fentiang, I think, has just got such overwhelming superiority at this point. 40 divisions versus 30. 48 factories against 24. Spread out between 3 different nations. Fentiang's pretty strong. It's just the fact they got League of 8 provinces that easily. I'm annoyed by that. In that situation, both of them should be major powers, not just Qing. Because League of 8 provinces arguably has a better industrial base than Qing does. And I know that there are ways of making that happen. Does Fentian have air superiority? Probably. If they're getting volunteers. Yeah, they do. I mean, there's never very many planes in China if it's just Chinese factions involved. And Fentiang's being supported by Japan. But only Japan. And Republic of China is not being supported by anyone. So, we do have volunteers on the way. Wrong team. No volunteers. So again, the other factions are just kind of letting China die at this point, which I think is a mistake. Like, the quicker you allow China to consolidate itself, the quicker Co-Pro becomes a real major force. And at this point, this is becoming a big problem for the Entente. The fact the Entente has sent basically no volunteers the entire game, I think, is going to really screw them. This is going to be making Co-Pro bigger and stronger, and that's going to be a big freaking problem for India. And the more borders that India gets, the bigger the problem it becomes.
Hey, Mordred.
Hey.
So we've had such a stable game. We've been waiting for a rehost to fix some of the bugs that have happened, but
okay.
I don't think that's going to happen for the Weltkrieg. So we're forcing a rehost now to fix a few things. For example, the Philippines and Austria didn't have Slovakia spawn, which is hurting them quite a bit.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so we were just hearing there's going to be a forced rehost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick 2-minute break here so I can make some more tea and stuff, although I haven't actually used that much of it. But I definitely need to take a 2-minute break. So I'm going to throw on an advert. We're going to take a 2-minute break right now. They're obviously working on the mod, so this is probably going to be a bit of an extended one. So I would imagine probably 5 to 10 minutes. So if you want to go make a sandwich or something like that, now would be your opportunity to do so. Back in a few. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw up the break video, or the break thing, with a set end time. I don't expect us to actually be back when that end time stops, but this gives you a rough idea of when we'll be back. So I'll say it's probably about 10 minutes, I would assume. Judging by how long it usually takes to fix mods up. And like I said, I'll also throw up an advert, seeing as we're not here anyway. Predictions on who's going to win. That's a very good question. Right now, I think that things are actually remarkably balanced. I would have said the Entente were in the weakest position because they've done so little international intervention, but they've got the USA in a pretty good time, and it's a pretty strong US. They didn't lose that much manpower. Reichspakt has done an excellent job in force projection. It's unfortunate that they lost League of Nine Provinces. I think that's going to hurt them a little. Third Internationale has become very quiet recently. I think that they completely balked the invasion of Two Sicilies. But I don't think that'll set them back too far, because SRI in its initial state is pretty weak anyway. But it's definitely a setback, especially in manpower. But they had a very good war against the Balkan League, Balkan Pact. And Co-Prosperity, I would say actually probably Co-Prosperity is in the weakest spot because it's taken so long for Fentiang to form. I think it could have taken even longer. But it's the 23rd of March 1939. There is a strong risk that Fentiang is still going to be trying to form while the Second World War is on. And also the fact that Dominion of India has not yet secured the southern tip. Slight problem, not a massive issue. So right now I would say in the strongest position probably Reichspakt. Or maybe Entente. Reichspakt or Entente. I'm going to put them as joint first, and then in a pretty close second, Internationale, and then third would be CoPro. South Africa being Entente line seems good for them. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm watching the names. I don't think anyone's changing nation. I don't think they've brought in any substitutes either. No, these names are all familiar. Ireland can have a ton of factories. Absolutely they can. More than Swiss? Yes. Ireland has one of the tallest building nations. They can get a crazy number of factories. They're excellent for lend-leasing. Favorite player? I don't know. Nobody's done anything which is, like, exceptional yet. We've certainly had no, like, Ukrainian or Swedish volunteer plays yet. At least none that I've seen. Right, let's go bring back the music.